What if leadership has nothing to do with being in charge? If PTSD, anxiety symptoms, depression, or seasonal depression has made you doubt yourself, this episode will show you how courage and everyday choices can become powerful leadership. Do you want to achieve your goals, but anxiety is tripping you up? Like to keep those fun weekend plans, but depression has you counseling again? Hey, I'm Lori, dog mom, lover of nature, and hygge enthusiast. Positive psychology skills help me overcome chronic severe PTSD. If you're ready to learn how to overcome your anxiety and depression and rediscover happiness and purpose in life, then get your cozy on and let's get started. Welcome back to Practical Solutions for PTSD and our next installment in the Not Broken Equipped series. And this time we're talking about one of the most misunderstood character strengths, and that is leadership. A lot of people think it has to do with, being in front and center, or, charge of the team or leading the company, the pastor of the church, whatever it could be, like authoritative leadership, someone in position. And this is where context becomes really, really important when you're taking not only the values and action survey, but any assessment, is you need to understand the definition of the terms within the context of that survey. And within the context of the values and action survey, this is where the definition of leadership can really change and throw you off a little bit. So we're going to dive into that here in just a minute and unfold all that and let you know how it impacts you when you're dealing with trauma. But before we do that, speaking of assessments, I did want to kind of just drop in this really quick. When you're looking at doing a one-on-one coaching session with me, specifically structured around helping you to develop your personalized toolkit to help you, handle stress, anxiety, depression, whatever that could be, this isn't about taking yet another assessment. Although I may recommend you do that, but that's not the point. The point isn't to take another assessment. It's about finally putting the ones you already have to work. And that's going to be our primary focus. Now, again, I may encourage you to take the values and action survey specifically because that one's really important and has a lot of science behind it, can really help unlock some things for you and help you to understand. So if you haven't taken the values and action survey, I do recommend you do that. It's free. There's no charge for it, and there's a lot of science behind it. It has a lot of great information. There's a link to do that in the show notes below, so you can grab that. But when we're talking about the one-on-one coaching, we're specifically talking about operationalizing the assessments that you've already taken. So together, we build your personal operating manual. We look at things like character strengths, your spiritual gifts, your personality, your natural thinking patterns, your motivators, your communication style, your stress response. We take all of these together, and then we answer practical questions like, how do you make decisions? How do you recharge? How do you naturally solve problems? What's your natural bent in that? What environment helps you to thrive best? What situations can drain you? Because that helps you to know what you need to do to refill that tank. How should you set goals? Not how the person to your left or right sets them, but how should you set goals? How do you best build habits? What's the best technique for you? How do you process emotions? And it's really important that you do process emotions and not suppress them or bottle them up. But how do you do that? How would it work best for you? How should you practice gratitude? There are loads of ways to be able to do this, to practice gratitude. Gratitude is so powerful in helping build resilience and emotional strength and helping you break free from anxiety and depression. But what's the best way for you to do that? How do you communicate boundaries? And we've talked a lot about boundaries on this show. And it's important that you communicate those to the people around you. So what's the most effective way for you to do that? Every recommendation that we make, depending on what issue you're wanting help with and guidance with and whatever you're looking at, we customize those recommendations around who you are. So instead of trying to become someone else, that person that you admire that's to your left or your right, you instead learn how to become the healthiest version of the person God has already created you to be. And that's what I mean by operationalizing your assessments. Not just collecting information and increasing your self-awareness, which is all really cool and awesome and highly recommended. but how you can actually put that into action and live it in your everyday life. So if this is something you would like to pursue, go to practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough. Schedule your first session today, and we can sit down and start charting this out and start targeting what you can utilize and how you can make it work for you to make you the best version of who God already created you to be. So again, go to practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough. You can set up your first 60-minute session with me today. So, as I mentioned, we are going to be jumping into our Not Broken Equip series, and we're talking about the virtue of justice. And our next one up is leadership. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, leadership is one of those strengths that is often misunderstood because we think it's that person that's at the front, the one you see, the one that's running the show from what the visible side of that. So maybe the person on stage or the person managing the team or taking charge in every situation. And that is a form of leadership. And I'm not reflecting on that at all. But that's not the only kind of leadership. There's a lot of different kinds of leadership. And in the context of the Values in Action survey, leadership is defined as someone who is able to bring a variety of people together to accomplish a single task or mission. But you can also use leadership as an influence. Influential leadership is very, very powerful. Yes, people, if they have authority, if they have authoritative leadership, they can give directives, and the people beneath them need to follow that. They're required to do that, and that is a form of leadership. But when you're doing it from influence, you're getting people to buy in because they believe in you. They believe in what you're doing, and you're getting them to come on your side simply by exercising your influence. And that's a really powerful way to lead. If you're living with trauma like PTSD, anxiety symptoms, depression, seasonal depression, isolation, any of those things, simply making decisions, encouraging someone else, or choosing your next step may require tremendous courage and strength. And sometimes just the simple fact of getting dressed for the day can feel so overwhelming. But leadership isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's not about having all the answers. It isn't even about making everyone happy. Real leadership begins by influencing the space around you with your character, your choices, and the way that you care for others. So sometimes leadership is very visible. It's that person standing on the stage, or it's the person that people are following to accomplish whatever may be happening. But sometimes leadership is happening one conversation at a time. Maybe it's that one on one conversation that you have with someone. And because of your advice and your influence, you're able to lead them to the decision that is best for them. Both versions of this type of leadership matter. If it's on the front, where everybody sees it, if it's a quiet person behind, both are powerful forms of leadership. Now, again, as defined within the context of VIA's survey, the leadership is the ability to influence others in positive ways while staying true to your own values. And it's important that you do stay true to those values, and you can use that to influence other people in a positive way. So, from a trauma informed perspective, leadership starts with trusting yourself again. A lot of times, if you've ended up in trauma, you begin to question your own judgment, or you avoid responsibility because you're afraid of getting it wrong. Or maybe you're just tired and you can't handle it anymore, or your emotions are out of whack and you just kind of hide from people. So, healthy leadership isn't about controlling people, it's about creating direction, encouragement, and hope. It looks like living your values consistently, making thoughtful choices, inviting collaboration instead of demanding compliance, encouraging growth in yourself and in others. Leadership isn't measured by how many people follow you, it's measured by the positive impact your life has on the people around you. And sometimes, especially in the social media world, how many followers do I have? And even in this podcast world, how many listeners do I have? How many subscribers do I have? How many reviews are on the podcast? And all these metrics are important, and I don't want to denigrate that at all, but that's not where real leadership comes in. Real leadership is taking, even if it's only two people or just one person, how am I influencing that one person in a positive way and impacting their life and leading them and helping them to understand and see the right choice to make or to be able to accomplish a task together and bringing those diverse groups of people together to do that? How does the character strength of leadership show up in our everyday lives and just ordinary moments? It could be speaking up with an encouraging word. If someone's discouraged or they're facing a battle and you're stepping in and trying to help them out, encourage them, cheer them on along the way. It could be taking initiative on a project. So sometimes you just need that one person to step forward and say, hey, let's do it. And other people join in and help and support. It could be helping someone discover their own strengths and lean into those and develop them. Or it could be remaining calm when others are feeling overwhelmed. And have you ever been in those meetings where everybody's kind of freaking out and then you have that one person that's just speaking quietly and calmly and it brings everybody, off the cliff edge and back to the table and figuring out how to move forward? That's leadership in action. So it could just be that one person that when everybody's freaking out, they're staying calm. I've been that person and I've had that person in the room when I was freaking out. And it's very effective. So for anxiety, leadership rebuilds confidence by reminding you that your voice and your choices matter. For depression, it restores purpose by helping you recognize that you still have something valuable to offer. For seasonal depression, leadership may simply mean protecting healthy routines or encouraging someone who's having a difficult day. You don't have to lead a crowd, and I know, especially if you're dealing with trauma, leading a crowd could feel really overwhelming. Sometimes making a difference for one person is enough. Now, when leadership becomes unhealthy, which every character strength can do this, but when leadership becomes unhealthy, it can become very unbalanced. A leadership loses its effectiveness when it becomes controlling instead of encouraging, taking responsibility for everything. And for people that have a strong sense of responsibility, this could definitely be a pitfall for them, is taking responsibility for everything. Remember, we talk about this a lot on the show. Control the controllables. You can't control everything. You're not responsible for everything. Control what you can control and take responsibility for what you're responsible for. Believing every outcome depends on you. This is another way where leadership can get unbalanced to become a drain on your resources instead of something that builds you up and strengthens you. Criticizing yourself whenever things don't go perfectly. Does it go perfectly for anyone? Perfection is not a thing. It just doesn't exist. Nothing is ever perfect. So if it doesn't go perfectly and you're overly criticizing yourself, this is another way that leadership can get out of balance. For trauma survivors, leadership may awaken fears of being judged, rejected, or repeating unhealthy patterns from the past. For anxiety, it often becomes overthinking every single decision. For depression, it can sound like someone else could do this better than I can. So I want to give you just a little bit of a reframe on this. Leadership isn't about carrying everyone's burdens. It's about faithfully using the influence that you've been given. So, how does leadership directly support PTSD, anxiety, depression, or other forms of trauma? How do you use this in your everyday life? Just live it out. So, for PTSD, leadership rebuilds confidence by reminding you that you can make thoughtful choices without expecting disaster around every single corner. For anxiety, it shifts your focus from fear to purposeful action. For depression, it restores meaning by reminding you that your presence and your contributions still matter. For seasonal depression, leadership encourages consistency through routines, healthy relationships, and realistic expectations. These are great ways to combat seasonal depression. And we're in August, so if you have summer sads, this would be a really great thing to implement right now in one of those months it's really difficult. Leadership won't remove every challenge, but it reminds you that you still have influence even in difficult seasons. So, how do you develop leadership? Here are 4 practical ways to strengthen this character strength. One is to start where you are. Look for opportunities every day to encourage and help or serve someone else. Lead by example. Your consistency often speaks louder than your words. Help others succeed. And this is a really great way if you're good leaders want other people to succeed. And this is a fantastic way to do that is look for ways to help other people succeed in whatever they're trying to achieve. So celebrate their strengths, share opportunities, and be willing to step back so they can grow. Number 4 is to let your values guide your choices. You don't have to impress people. You simply need to live in a way that's consistent with what matters most. So as we wrap up today, I want to remind you really quick, leadership isn't about control, titles, or being in the spotlight. It's about living in a way that leaves people stronger, encouraged, and hopeful. If this strength feels a little distant today, it hasn't disappeared. It grows every time you choose courage over fear, encouragement over criticism, and purpose over perfection. So here's a question for you to take into the week. Who in your life could be encouraged simply because you choose to show up with compassion, wisdom, and hope? So let me repeat that. Who in your life could be encouraged simply because you choose to show up with compassion, wisdom, and hope? You don't have to change the whole world. Sometimes changing one person's day is more than enough. If you would like some help in mapping out your character strengths and how you can use them in your everyday life to turn on your superpowers, go to practicalsolutionsforptsd.com/breakthrough and schedule your appointment today. Hey, my friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with someone you know who may be struggling with depression and anxiety? Also, would you please leave a quick review for the show? Knowing how this podcast is helping you fills my heart with so much joy, and it motivates me for future episodes. For now, it's time for Sam and I to head outside to enjoy some sunshine and fresh air. We'll see you back here on Tuesdays and Thursdays for more great episodes.